because basically Twitter was very partisan. So Gab's pretty big. I went in right away and I grabbed the handle Flat Earth. I'm actually on Gab as Flat Earth. So Gab was involved in a tweet today or a Twitter exchange, and what they were talking about was, and I'll pull it up for you. They were just looking to find out, and this is from Gab. Let me give you that exact tweet link. Is Flat Earth a topic that is being censored on Gab? This is something they want to know. They want to know if the topic's being ignored on Gab or censored as it has everywhere else. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know about Gab versus Float. I'm staying on Float, but I'm just pointing it out that they're reaching out to talk about the topic of censorship. And so um, that's something I was going to try to reach out and discuss because, as you know, we just lost our 69th channel. And it's kind of funny how so many people are there to cry censorship when they really haven't been censored. If you violated a term of service, that's one thing, an explicit one at that. You know, if you upload some pro Hitler fanboy stuff, you know, like ethnic nationalism or whatever, of course you're going to get taken down. My issue is with the takedowns that don't have any kind of law or rule, whatever they can point to. It's not like, oh, well, this 5 minute segment of your 4 hour rant is what got you kicked off. They don't tell you. And if they told you, it'd probably make you a better person or whatever, you know, better suited for their particular website or platform. Like, let me know what was it that I said, you know, what did I say that got me kicked off? But they never really do that, that justice. They keep it very vague, and I think that's on purpose. But as far as the topic being censored, I do find it interesting that Gab is very right wing. I don't know if it's being suppressed or if it's just not a popular place for them, because there's not a lot of crossover except in the minds of the media. And this is another interesting thing I've observed, how the media is consistently trying to portray the people who think that the earth is flat as right wingers. And they've been doing this endlessly. That's why I started the Facebook group Flat Earthers for Hillary Clinton. You know, it's more or less a joke, but if we can get 30,000 people to get in on the joke, maybe we could do something with it fun. But it's ridiculous because when somebody suggests, or when it's suggested to somebody that the earth is flat and they take it seriously, then one of the first things they do is they lose any kind of trust in their political leadership. So they're not right wingers. They're actually more like anti-statist or anarchist, not centrist. But that's just the media characterization. And then another thing that has been coming up lately, and I'll be covering this here shortly, is how the idea of infinite plane is being ignored, obviously. They want to impose this curved sky dome. And I've been asking, you know, if there's a dome, is it higher in the middle? And I actually heard a couple of dome pushers saying that, yeah, it would be higher in the middle. And if you were near Antarctica, a rocket would hit the dome at 20 miles up and make this kerplunk. I mean, it's ludicrous, but you'll hear it. But I'm watching this interview where Narc Sargent is discussing flat Earth with this interviewer, and he holds up his little snow globe model in his hand, and he says, "This is it. This is what we believe." And the guy says, "Wait, there are some people who don't believe that you're under a dome." And you're going to hear Mark's response, but he does say that 67% of flat earthers believe, well, 70 is what he says. I estimate it's 67 percent think it's a dome, but then there's 30 of us, or 30% of us, who don't. But I see it being brought up, and I don't think they want it brought up. And the last thing they want is the infinite plane meme to become part of the conversation. They don't want it to have representation. So the very idea of the IPS is very obnoxious to them because they're vested in maintaining an enclosure. Now, those of us on the inside, we know, those of us who have been observing, we know that the domed enclosure is actually the guard railing narrative intended to keep anybody from changing the status quo. You know, have them bury their noses in a Bible. You know, drug them up with the Mandela effect. Anything. Just don't let them talk about Antarctica. And you're going to hear every one of these guys naysay Antarctica. You know, Globebusters actually hired someone to replace the Morgile basically because he was really good at saying, oh, it's too much paperwork. It's legalese and paperwork that's stopping us. So I'm going to go through this because I think it's important to point out how whether or not you think people are agents or shills, you have to recognize that there are guard railing narratives which you may be unwittingly pushing yourself. Anyone pushing false flag, MK Ultra, reptilians, etc., yeah, we would all be guilty of guard railing, unconsciously, unknowingly, just putting up Alex Jones Infowars stickers on your car. You're like, oh, I'm raising awareness. No, you're guard railing. You're participating in the mass misinformation campaign. You're helping augment the mass media delusion. It's not the same thing as truth when you're just spinning the stories. And that's another common thing that I see within the so called truth community. And we'll get into that. There's quite a lot to go over if you follow me on Minds or on Float. And found out a few more things about the JFK limo, things that are really going to throw the Mandela affected for a loop. And also, one of our mascot memes, one version of it, actually, the one of the sunglasses, made Vice. And we'll go over that too because of the Flat Earth soccer team. I learned a bit about this Michael Jones, who's a heavy influence on Owen Benjamin. And Michael Jones is someone who actually talks about the Michelson-Morley experiment. And he's not a flat earther, but this is probably where Owen Benjamin came across the whole flat earth idea. And it's basically geocentrism. So it's very interesting. And this is the guy who also introduced the word logos, which is the new name. There's so many names for Jesus these days. It's Jesus, Yeshua, Yahuwah, Yawahashi, and now you've got logos. Like every little cult has their own name. Just call them Fepe. One of the main things I want to talk about today is going to be Juice World and that death faker, which it's pretty obvious. It's pretty funny. It even looks like they use the same dummy that they use for Nipsey Hussle with red shorts and one missing sock, complete with all kinds of ominous foreshadowing, like a trending TikTok. If you don't know what TikTok is, it's like WhatsApp. It's just like a short video clip sharing social media site. And so these people do short videos of themselves pantomiming a seizure. And the rapper dies from a seizure. And they do it in his name, and it's before he died. So we'll get into that. We have a clip here where Mark Sargent, states that 60% are domers, and no, 70% is what he says, which we'll get into that probably first here. And he was interviewed by David McRaney at the Gather Festival in Stockholm, Sweden, which is interesting, Stockholm, because it is Stockholm Syndrome they're trying to induce in you with the PSYOPs, make you fall in love with the terrorists that keep you confined. So interesting to see him there. So that would be David McRaney and Mark Sargent. I also have a debunk for the Mandela effect about Jesus being crucified on a tree. A few more things. I want to make sure I don't miss a thing. I want to catch everyone up to what we were on. Found some interesting findings in the realm of deepfakery and the actual use of digital deepfakes. I mean, we've been talking a lot about the masks and all that, but beyond that, there's the actual digital deepfakery. PSYOP Industrial Complex is doing what it does as usual. And one other thing, we've been talking about this UPS truck being hijacked out there in Miami. And my contention is that it was a staged operation, nobody died or cried, and that they used simunition. They used sparking paintballs, which you can see if you look at it objectively. They're using sparking paintballs. However, it is being taken as an example of police force going out of control because they kill some innocent bystanders. And I think this is part of the narrative of saying that it's not about stopping bad guys with guns with good guys with guns, because even good guys with guns will miss. We've got to get rid of guns. So I think this agenda here, just like the one with the Odessa to Midland mail truck being hijacked, same story, basically. And I wouldn't be surprised if this one is also run by the left wing, whereas the base shootings that are based on Saudi terrorists taking aviation classes, referencing 9/11, saying "Hail Obama" or Osama, they're really, that one was done by the right, obviously. And I did point out that they were going to draw attention to the fact that this base shooter was apparently watching videos of mass shootings before he did one. Again, I don't believe that's true. I certainly think that would be part of the whole hoax here, is that now we got a justification for increasing the amount of censorship of videos, specifically the New Zealand one, which has already been used as a pretext to censor BitChute in New Zealand. So look, we've had a year of censorship, and it's been getting worse. Look at this. This is a post from 2014. It just says grammar Nazi with a G on it. And look at the reason why they banned it. Again, this was posted in 2014. Your post goes against our community standards on dangerous individuals and organizations. No one else can see your post. We have these standards to prevent and disrupt offline harm. Offline harm. In other words, this might trigger someone to go out and commit some violence. So we went ahead and removed it. So you're already being convicted of thought crimes, and you're already being protected from things that they know can cause you to go commit thought crimes, or rather, real crimes. You know, you're going into the realm where you're hitting radical materials, and if you're exposed to it, it actually might cause you to go do something. All right, I'm opening up chat here. I haven't been paying attention to it. I see we already have, looks like 45 domestic terrorists and or schizophrenics in attendance. And that's according to the MSM, who run the mind control media designed to give society a collective case of schizophrenia. Let's start off with this. Speaking of madness and government-induced madness, the Mandela affected are saying that Jesus no longer died on a cross, but he died on a tree. Well, this is an article from before the Mandela effect. This is from the year 2000. And of course, they'll say this was just added to the books. They just updated this. No, they didn't. So, the Greek word for cross and tree are different. Literally, cross is an instrument of capital punishment, an upright stake with a crossbeam. Very simple. The word cross occurs 27 times in the New Testament. And even in context, they're using the term cross. A tree, defined as a growing plant with branches in the same Bible, occurs 25 times, many times in the same verses, and there's no use of the word tree in reference to a cross. So it says, if that is so, why do some Bibles translate it into the word tree when referencing Jesus' crucifixion? For that, let's look at a third word. So it turns out wood, which is a word very similar to a tree, is actually used interchangeably with cross. So there are some interpretations where it says they put him to death by hanging him on a wood, a tree, you see. When they had carried out all that was written concerning him, they took him down from the wood and laid him in a tomb. Again, this does not mean tree. So conclusion, Jesus was crucified on a cross and not a tree. And it would make a big difference because wasn't he crucified between two thieves? And if it was a Mandela effect and they changed it, then how come everything since hasn't changed? How come all these Christians walking around with crosses around their necks aren't wearing little trees around their necks? Nothing about this Mandela effect makes any sense. It's so inconsistent. But they always have a fallback position, and they say, in my reality, it's this way. Okay, go for it. You know, retreat into pure solipsism. But for me, we're trying to break away from solipsism, which is what the MSM worldview will put you into if you believe the pseudo-news, the pseudo-histories, the pseudo-science, and all the deep fakes. And if you agree with what they claim they can do and have done, basically, yeah, you're put into a surreality, a simulation, as Elon Musk would call it, because he works for the technocrats. He's one of their pitchmen. He knows that you're already in the simulation. So which side are you on? Because it's ultimately between real and fake. Religion is on the side of fake. So if you think you're on the side of real, and your authority is still coming from religion, you're wrong. If you think you're on the side of real, but your authority is still mainstream media, you're wrong. Mainstream media is religion. Religion is just a regimented worldview. So you really have to choose a side. And it's this. It's between dogma and faith, like I'm arguing from a book or established or consensus beliefs, or you're arguing from logic and reason. And to me, the dome, for example, and we'll go right into this, the domed flat earth concept comes from dogma, that is the Bible, comes from faith, because they don't know. Therefore, it's fake. The dome is on the side of fake. Infinite plane, I'm not saying it's infinite, I haven't been there. Unlike the domers, I will not make claims about things that I can't possibly know. They're like, oh, I know there's a dome up there. No, you don't. I don't know it's infinite, but it's infinite till proven otherwise. Because if we start with the assumption that we're enclosed, then you're starting from an assumption based on dogma. And why would you allow dogma to prevent you from finding out if there's more land? So clearly, the people who are pushing the dome model do not want you using logic and reason. And this is why IPS is a banned acronym.
Why do you have a dome?
You can't say infinite around these people. So listen to this guy. This is Dave McRaney, author and host of You Are Not So Smart Books and Podcast, interviewing Mark at the Gather Festival in Stockholm. And here's where Mark is queried about the dome. And look at the looks in his eyes. I mean, he looks like a deer caught in the headlights here. Check a look.
And most of the models, as a matter of fact, because as you know, machines have a really hard time. Machines think really in squares. They don't. It's hard for a machine to think in circles. Most of the big models of this would be this sitting on some sort of squarish thing, but it's not as easy.
But you don't believe it's a square shape. It is a disc.
Oh, it might be. Well, I mean, on the outsides, it might be a square, but this part that we're living on is a disc.
So he's saying that the disc might be on a square. And I've been saying this. The biblical model is a dome on a footstool. But they never talk about the footstool. So he's being asked. They're asking him. David McRaney's asking Mark Sargent, well, what's beyond this circle? Is it a square?
And why the dome? Why? What is this purpose?
Oh, why do you have a dome?
Because I've seen.
Well, why do you have a dome? Is he repeating the question to buy time, maybe to avoid having to answer, or what? Because watch what it goes into.
Models that don't include the dome.
Okay, good point. You've done some research here. In our community, maybe 70% of our community believe in the domed model, and another 30%, which is not a small percentage.
No, it's 33%, but no, it's not a small percentage. But they don't talk about this very often. And that's why he said, oh, you've done your homework. Because David McRaney is like the first time an interviewer ever asked him, well, are there people who don't agree with you?
Believe that there is no dome, that it's an infinite plane, but most of the people believe that.
Okay, now this is the part that kills me. Do you know why we think it's an infinite plane? Not because of logic and reason, not because we're refusing to accept dogma and peer pressure. No, the reason why we don't believe in the dome is because it makes us feel boxed in. Makes us feel angsty.
Model. And another 30%, which is not a small percentage, believe that there is no dome, that it's an infinite plane. But most of the people believe that for a reason that they don't like being fenced in. They feel claustrophobic.
They don't like being fenced in. How many of you like being fenced in? The whole idea here is that you've been fenced in as sheeple. And he's like, oh, they don't like being fenced in. Well, of course we don't. Of course, this is the same guy who's taken the model of the Truman Show, or this Truman Show as an analogy for flat Earth, never mentioning that the whole point of it is that Truman is being lied to, and the instant he finds out, he tries to figure out how to GTFO, which he does. Because he didn't like being fenced in. Truman doesn't like being fenced in. Does that make him an infinite planer? I would say so. Maybe we should adopt the Truman Show for the Infinite Plane Society as an apt analogy for what we're describing, because it is rather analogous here. We're talking about a barrier, not of walls, not of a dome made out of emeralds and magic. No, we're talking about a fence made of lies, a literal wall of lies. And this guy's like, oh, they don't like being fenced in. No, I don't like being lied to and fenced in. And that's obviously the reason why we've been lied to. Like, duh.
But most of the people believe that for a reason that they don't like being fenced in. They feel claustrophobic. But the dome, from a physics standpoint, works way, way better.
And how is the math handled where if you're on an airplane?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on from that. We have some other comments on the very dome, which the dome is an anti-scientific proposition. It's so strange that the dome proponents will talk about pseudoscience, or scientism is what they call it. Oh, it's scientism's the bad guy. Bibleism is the good guy. No, actually, both of these are worldviews that are on the side of dogma and faith and arguments, bad arguments, logical fallacies. So let's go on to the next example. Okay, so this is from the Flat Earth podcast. And here they talk about the dome versus the infinite plane.
Like in the last year, how many significant major flat earthers believe in the infinite plane theory? Like to me, it seemed like, at the beginning that was like the big thing. There was the two big, competing views, and now it seems like there's very few people that believe in infinite plane.
There's very few people that believe in infinite plane. Well, first of all, it's not something you believe in. How would you know? Like you believe in a dome, how would you know? See, we're not asserting to believe things that we don't know because we're not dogmatic. We're fact oriented. We're not faith oriented. We're on the side of science, not on the side of mysticism, which is what has mandoozled the world today. Mysticism disguised as science, or mysticism in the form of these fundamentalist religious cults.
Is it just me, or have you noticed the shift?
There's definitely more people realizing that we live in an enclosed system. What's beyond that, we don't know. And,
Sure.
and I really haven't even thought about it much.
Haven't thought about it much. You've had years to think about this thing, and you've not thought about what's beyond? How convenient. Because to me, the whole domed operation was to prevent you from talking about what's out there by saying there's no point in talking about it. Mission accomplished for 70%.
Could there
Yeah.
be more out there? Yeah.
No, we're not talking about could there be more. We're talking infinite. It goes on forever. I mean, to me, when I heard this theory, I was like, that's insane. First of all, in my understanding, the only thing that's infinite is God himself. The idea that men would say that any creation would be the same, qualities as the creator is crazy to me. Like equal. You know what I mean? He's the only one that's infinite.
I do the Flat Earth podcast with my host Matt Long, and he's on the biblical side.
He's great.
And he leads his argument with the Bible.
There you go. The Bible. Bible says. Well, the Bible says a whole lot of crap that makes no sense. Using the Bible as an authority and cherry picking makes no sense. If you're going to cite the Bible, you need to cite the entire Bible. I mean, really, it's a worldview thing. But to use it selectively is dishonest, and that's how they manage to kind of mask what they do in science when they're doing their investigations, but they're just doing dome confirmation, bias confirmation, community building, and stopping people from talking about the area that the oligarchs have labeled off as ice.
Sure.
And I lead
With science.
with not the Bible.
You don't lead with science. If you're saying there's a dome, see, you hear that? He said science. No, man. They're trying to sell you a lemon. These used car salesmen turned Bible salesmen. They're selling you a version of it that's totally not only false, but it's definitely meant to mislead the people who are questioning the pseudoscience and the deep space fakery, and to stop them from thinking about what's out there.
Right, with
Correct.
science.
Correct.
And but then I say, but it says it in the Bible. And so now when I come across something new and I think about something, my mind goes, what does the Bible say?
What does the Bible say? Give me a break. What about the Quran? I mean, you know how ethnocentric this garbage is? How it excludes so many points of views. It's very exclusive. It's very biased. It's very narrow. It's anti-science. It's dogmatic. And it's definitely agenda-driven. And if you ask me, the dome has Fed written all over it. So, our community, maybe 70% believe in a dome. Which side are you on? And I can state that, unequivocally. Which side are you on? Dogma, like Weiss and company, or logic, IPS. And there are no other groups out there on the side of logic and reason, both with deep space fakery and the fakery coming from the MSM and the mainstream religions. They always fall into one of the traps. They might see through fake space, they might see through fake news, like Richie from Boston, for example, but he can't see through the trap of religion. They get you in one of these ways, and well, not us. See, we're the escape risks, and that's why they don't want to talk about IPS or infinite plane as a concept, and that's probably why the flat universe, which was widely accepted by physicists as flat until 2 months ago, why they turned it into a ball, if you ask me. Let me catch up on chat. We've got 66 people here. X says, don't speak for IPS Dork Sergeant. Thirst for Truth says Sargent says he likes simulation theory. Is he Mandoozled? Ooh, I wouldn't be surprised. There's not a conspiracy bandwagon that he probably wouldn't jump into. Strangebird, BitChute is also partly banned in Oz. Yeah, that's because they don't want you to see the Christchurch shooting documentary put together by the Infinite Plane Society think tank. Now, I got a question. So, you're a Holocaust denier, you get banned. You're a school shooting denier, you get banned. What if you're a reality denier? Wouldn't that put the nihilists and the Mandela effectees in that camp? Are they allowed to say, I don't believe in this? What if I say, I don't believe in the past? I don't believe that billions died. You think it's offensive to say 6 million didn't die? What if I say billions never died and the dinosaurs never died because all that's existed is now and what comes next? The past is really just an illusion to give me a sense of orientation as to where I am when I began this present incarnation. I mean, if I had that as a belief, solipsism in other words, magical thinking, would that be censorable as hate speech? When does hate become crazy in their eyes? And they're really blurring these lines. And this is something I'm going to bring up today as well. This is right on the cover of the Drudge Report. They can't say unequivocally that the Saudis who were killing Americans on the base, and this is the mainstream narrative, we know it's fake, but the narrative is, yeah, it was terrorists. They're shouting Allah Akbar, doing their thing. Well, guess what? They can't call it terrorism because he might be mentally ill. And it was Senator Rick Scott out there in Florida who actually said this. Well, we don't know if it was done as a result of terrorism or mental illness. Why would they do that? Because they want to efface the difference. They want to make it seem as though the real threat is information, radicalizing information. Information which, in the hands of someone who's mentally ill or angry or too hateful and racist, becomes lethal, becomes a threat to public safety. Jordan says, seems like Mark is using misdirection. Of course, infinite is on the table if you don't know, but dome points to a new religion. Maybe there is a dome, maybe not. The only evidence I have seen is the rainbow. Okay, on that point, let me get into the rainbow thing really quick, because this is brought up quite often. Oh, we have some good stuff here. But let me show you this. Because if you're going to say that the rainbow is arced because there's a dome, you should know that when you're high enough and you have the right conditions, you can actually see that the rainbows are actually circles. It's a whole circle. But not from where you are on the ground, because you're just a human on the ground. But get up high enough or get a high enough vantage point, and you'll see that's actually a circle. So does that prove that we're on a globe? And if this was proving a dome somehow, there is no way that this level of curvature is consistent with the curvature of the sky, unless you're living under a local dome. Like, no, that's one of these absurd propositions planted by the people who want to lead you back to the Bible, and now the rainbow is a sign of God, just like it was for Noah. Fake, fake, fake. Okay, so let's get on to the next topic here, since we're talking about fakery. We're talking about the dome, which side you're on. So I couldn't sleep last night. It was like 4 in the morning. So I started drawing these, and I came up with this new slogan, Speak Penguin or Die, hashtag SPOD, to go along with Storm Antarctica. Speak Penguin or Die. And basically what this means is the Flat Earth movement needs to start talking about Antarctica, or it's going to die. It's going to become a cult, like Scientology. They're going to take cruises, they're going to hang out with celebrities, they're going to do conferences at hotels, they're going to be drunk on hotel pool water 365 days a year, and they're never going to talk about what's in Antarctica. Speak Penguin or Die is just a statement. I'm not saying kill people. It's a statement of the movement's going to die if it doesn't learn how to adapt. If you go to infiniteplanesociety.com, I have Speak Penguin or Die mugs, I believe, and some other things. So let's get into the death faker. This one's going to be big. This is something. So is Juice Wrld faking his death? There's quite a lot to go through here. Quite a lot to go through, and I'm going to go through everything that I have right now. I don't know if I've missed anything. Let me go ahead and bring this up really quick because we have some favorable coverage, and this surprised me. We have this soccer team, a Madrid-based soccer team that is called Flat Earth. So they're the first football club in the world to represent the idea rather than a geographic location. So instead of a location, they're the Flat Earth soccer team. They represent the Flat Earth. So their president here is part of a little piece by Vice, and it's a very positive take, and and a few things about it that I like. One, not everyone on the team thinks it's flat, but they've all looked into it, and they don't have any sort of contention. They're not endlessly debating and fighting. And then two, the ones who are talking about it are open-minded. They haven't said, "Oh, because the Bible says." And then they have a flat Earth theme song, which is pretty interesting.
No, lo que vamos a regalar.
So this would be him. I dedicated my whole life to football, discovered the flat Earth theory, and since I was already the president of a football club, that was it. There are flat earthers in all the different countries. We represent across the flat Earth. So that's his concept.
Todo el plano.
It shows him going out in public, meeting people. Really nothing negative about this. They're not attached to the YouTube drama whatsoever, which is kind of interesting. Nothing shilly here. In no way, they don't attach Hitler to the idea. They don't attach anything dogmatic or political. There's no anti-Semitic comedians fronting this group. They're talking about the Earth being flat, and this guy has it tattooed on his forearm here. But overall, this is a very positive piece. If you want to see it, it's called the Flat Earth Football Club, and it's on Vice. And at the beginning of the piece, they mention memes. And when they mention memes, they show our mascot penguin. And over there, what they've done is they've given him sunglasses because they're closer to the equator. So this has been a version of our mascot that they adapted, I think in 2017. I always liked it. On Vice. Okay, let's move on. So is Juice World faking his death? Juice World is another rapper, and the death has some interesting circumstances surrounding it. Definitely some foreshadowing in the lyrics. And there was this creepy little game. There was a trend on TikTok where his fans were feigning seizures. And this is how he dies right after. Very fishy. I'm going through your comments. All right, we have 77 people watching right now. Go ahead and share the stream wherever you're at. Okay, fake news. This is from the Daily Mail. We'll get into this death faker, but I want to cover these other things first because I see this term fake news being brought up again, and this is a very clever piece of misinformation that isn't being described properly. Fake news is a term to make you think that media bias is the problem. So this article here says, fake news is now down to you as we individually twist the facts to fit our beliefs. So what this study shows is that we're all promulgating fake news, that every single one of us has a bias, and that we will twist controversial facts with how we interpret the news and how we share it, how we spread it, how we propagate what we believe. So this is reinforcing the idea that news has a bias, and that's the problem. So we got to deal with bias individually and collectively. Not just left and right wing, but down to the individual and what we share. We have to be responsible for what we share because we don't want to share fake news. We don't want to share news or memes that might incite offline violence, like the Facebook censors are saying. But what I'm saying here is that the quote fake news meme itself is being used to hide psychological operations, which are specifically hoaxes where no one dies, hoaxes that involve the government and the media working together to deceive and propagandize the public. So in other words, As long as people think that fake news, when you say it's fake, all you're talking about is a bias or a slant, they don't really make the connection between fabricated stories inserted into the news media as though they are real. This is how they hide psyops. So the term fake news has been thoroughly just co opted by the purveyors of psychological operations in the media. So good job. Oh, speaking of censorship, also, I went to DLive because this is where the censored people go. And I went to a channel of someone who has been heavily censored. And the very first thing that happened, error, you have been muted in this chat room. So why did I get muted from Owen Benjamin's chat room? Because I said speak penguin or die. Is that bannable? Anyway, here's a link if you want to pick up one of the Speak Penguin or Die mugs. It's one way you can support the growth of Infinite Plane Radio and also spreading our memes, which is very important to the overall mission. Okay, so let's get into Juice World. TMZ, December 8th, Juice World dies, seizure, Chicago Midway Airport Hospital. And I'm going to go through the initial coverage here. So he had something called, and this is Juice World here, dead at 21. Okay? Dead at 21 after suffering seizure from TMZ. So, you can read into it what you will. The watch, the yellow, the black, there may be symbolism in here, but I'm just looking at the stuff that's just in our face, without having to dig too deep into it. And then I have something from Cam B related to this that will factor into it. So he's doing something called the Lucid Dream Challenge. And this is where I think we're seeing evidence of a setup, a hoax. So the Lucid Dream Challenge, users, this is TikTok users, TikTok, like it's an app. Here's a compilation. So they're faking seizures. I guess it's a dance. But you see them spitting the water out or the foam from their mouths. I'll find you some more examples of it, but it's an interesting thing. I've never heard of it. I guess just another viral trend. Lucid dreams, but the TikTok challenge. This is the part I find interesting. The disturbing Juice World Lucid Dreams challenge trended before his death. Fans pretended to suffer seizures in their videos. Juice World passed away at the age of 21 on Sunday morning. According to TMZ, the rapper suffered a seizure while walking through an airport after the news broke out. Attention turned towards the TikTok challenge based around his breakout song Lucid Dreams. Warning, some readers may find the clips below disturbing. So you can see the seizures. The clips involve fans shaking uncontrollably and spitting out water as audio from the following line skips in the background. I have these lucid dreams where I can't move a thing. Look at this one. Okay, so I'll zoom in for you. So it's just a dance move or whatever. Is that water that they're spitting out, I guess? Here's another one. Of course, this was trending before he died, and what they call it, of course, whenever it's meta scripting, where you can see through the scripting, they say, oh, it's a disturbing coincidence that this lucid dream challenge started trending a month before his death. One compilation uploaded on 11/3 sat at 300,000 views. Although 3 million TikTok videos include the hashtag, the number of TikTokers who actually fake seizures is much lower. A lot of 33s in there. People are saying, you all predicted Juice WRLD's death. That's how he died. Very interesting. People are getting hate over it too. Okay, so that's one thing. So that alone says, okay, well, what are the odds? What is it with all these bizarre coincidences and these enigmatic, coincidences surrounding these things? Now, here's some lyrics from one of his songs where he says, "What's the 27 club? We ain't making it past 21." And of course, dead at 21. So, those are some hints right there. Chalk Body Outline says 21-year-old $3 million sign in bonus. Pretty Boy Julia says he even tweeted it that he wanted fame to do it so he could have money. Says Juice World didn't die. He said his idol was John Lennon, who dies on December 8th. Man, that's interesting. He said his idol was John Lennon, who dies on December 8th. John Lennon, another death faker, came back as Steve Jobs, another death faker, spotted in Egypt earlier this year. Very interesting here. They always reference other death fakers because they're part of the same clique. They're all behind the curtain. The green screen is what I'd call it today. Okay, let's move on. We're going through what I have on this juice. So he basically announces it. Here's another one. Rolling Loud, Los Angeles 2019. This is coming up. It's in a week. So I guess they had to kill off Juice World before the festival. Okay, check this out. Lil Uzi Vert and Juice World were both on the lineup. So this is an interesting point. This is where Cam B comes into the picture. Here's where we get into the deep fakery. So it turns out that Juice World, who just faked his death, is also playing the role of Lil Uzi Vert, who is going to be performing in a week. So how convenient. They don't have to share a
What's up, you
stage.
guys? Can be.
Here's Cam B.
So this is gonna be Lil Uzi Vert. I don't care for any of his music. I think he's absolutely hot garbage. And of course, he's completely satanic and devil worshiper and all that nonsense. So the elites love this kind of guy. And let me tell you right now, he's playing another role and he's masked up. I think he's wearing a mask and he's playing.
Now check this out. This was called out on November 29th. And Cam B emailed me about this because this has happened 3 times so far where he calls someone out and then they have to die. They have to kill off that character.
Playing the role of a rapper named Juice World, and I've never heard of this person in my life. But that is absolutely Lil Uzi Vert. Juice World is Lil Uzi Vert.
So Juice World is Little Uzi Vert. So if you're missing Juice World, all you fans, you may want to take a ride and go to Rolling Loud Los Angeles and say hi to Juice World on behalf of Cam B and the IPS.
And I think when he's Juice World, he's wearing a mask. I think Lil Uzi Vert is actually the bass actor here. And then he dresses up and wears a mask as Juice World. So this one is another HH2 special, hot off the press. Again, thanks to you, sir. And we'll keep it going. There's something else I wanted to say. I kind of forgot, I think, but yeah. Oh no, I was just gonna say that this one took me a minute to see. Like at first, I did not see this one. I didn't see it at all, and I was like, what? But you just gotta catch the photos where they're a little bit off guard. So they're not prepared to, pose for the camera. That's when you'll catch them slipping. So, just something to point out.
All right, that's Cam B, and he's going to be promoted here over at autohoax.com, and I'll link that. In fact, I think I did a preliminary article on this. If you haven't been to autohoax.com, just opened the site. We've had 1,600 visitors so far. So my initial take on it, December 8th, is Juice World faking his death. Predictive scripting in his lyrics. What's the 27 club? We ain't making it past 21. He dies at 21. He was about to release a record. The rapper conquered the same chart earlier this year with his second solo album, Death Race for Love, which ruled 2 consecutive frames in March. It's been less than a year since he owned Billboard 200, but Juice World is already preparing his next release. And this is always common. There's always something that's about to be released, a book or a record. Scheduled to drop this month. He returned to Hot 100's top 10 in October with Bandit. And then, of course, the Lucid Dream Challenge. So I'll go back and add what we covered today to that article. And let me see what we have going on in the chat to see if I've missed anything. Leroy Jenkins says first orange OJ Orange Juice, then Juicy Smollett, now Juice World. A notorious big song called Juicy. They love the juice. Pull up the video of him selling his soul. Okay. Fearless did a video. Hey, if somebody did videos on the topic, send them to me. Please. If you have any links, I think I might have something here in Discord. Hold on. And if you're not in Discord, you have to join. Thank you for the link here. You have to join Infinite Plane Society at Patreon. It's $1 a month. You get notifications, newsletters, and you get access to the think tank.
You know what I'm saying? Juice World.
Okay, this is from Divine World Order. Another great channel. Juice World, Fake Death, Posts and Effects of Drug Culture.
All right, I'm sure everybody didn't heard what went down. You know what I'm saying? Juice World or whatnot. I mean, I don't understand how people are really surprised, really. When we've been, condoning this. This is something as a culture that we have to get a grip on. No.
Okay, so here's what he said. My goal is to get overly famous, shine for a couple years, then fake my death. 8:44 p.m., April 24th, 2017, retweeted 25,000 times. So there's people responding to that tweet saying, are you in Cuba now? Give Pac a hug. See, this is funny. That's the guardrail, and this is subtle. It's very subtle, but if you get this, you'll see through all of it. Basically, they want you to think that Pac faked his death and he's in Cuba, and if Juice World faked his death, he's in Cuba. In other words, these guys who fake their deaths went somewhere. No, that's not really how it works. We're talking about the world stage and characters dying, and the character that you fell in love with or you idolized was never a real person in the first place. So Tupac the Gangster didn't move to Cuba. Tupac the Gangster died according to the meta script, and he comes back as another performer. Same with this. And oftentimes they're playing the same roles at the same time. They're like, well, no, he couldn't be this person because that person was around. Well, yeah. They play both at the same time. That's one of the things you have to appreciate with these deepfakes is that they're just like embedded agents or spies. They build a character over a period of time. They make it real. There's a reason why you go to some of these patsies on Facebook after a fake shooting and that have no back history, no social media footprint. Like Blasey Ford, no social media. Look it up. 20 years, no social media? How did that happen? Could it be that she's a deepfake? Or rather, she's the face of someone who's deepfaking. In this case, Blasey Ford is Brett Kavanaugh. But let's go on to Divine Order. He's talking about this where, yeah, Juice World said 2 years ago, I'm going to get overly famous and shine for a couple years and fake my death. And boom.
Nobody can really blame anybody. Everybody needs to be taking accountability. We listen to a million songs of popping pills.
Oh, so he's talking about how this guy is an advocate of drug culture. And that's always another thing, too. What is it that they are using to advance? Using the PSYOP to advance. So, like, shootings are used to advance gun control. Terror attacks, border security, national security. So what's the point of these drug overdose deaths? Jim Morrison, Juice World. Is Juice World another Jim Morrison, in other words? Like, you have a lot of these drug overdoses. Could it be that maybe they're trying to say something about fame, maybe something about drugs themselves, and keep this idea that we need a drug enforcement agency that locks people up for trying to alter their consciousness? Ultimately, it's part of the mind war. And that's really another thing, too. This... Oh, here's another one by Fearless TV. It's part of demoralizing people, too, when they kill off their idols. Okay, not who they claim to be. And this is by Fearless TV. It's a fascinating topic, and some of these aren't even good disguises. And so it looks like he already had pointed out, looks like Juice World here. So here we have a better face comparison. So Cam B is suggesting that this is the mask, the one that just died off before he had to headline with the other one. That this is the mask, and these masks are subtle. We're talking about just another layer of epidermis, just a little bit of silicone. Doesn't take a lot, and it usually encompasses the entire head, the ears, the neck, on down. They even have them for the hands, for the whole body. You could have a bodysuit that makes you look muscly, but not like these cheesy Halloween costumes, but the real thing. Or fat, or pregnant, or breasted. So here's the two of them contrasted, and again, this is by Fearless TV. I'm going to put a link here in the description, and if you look into the disguise programs with the CIA, they talk a lot about the creation of contrast between characters, and they contrast them in every way so that you would never associate the two. Okay, I'm looking through your comments here. Okay, Chalkbody Outline says, let me find a link to look up Juice World Sells Your Soul. It's a 24-second video. And look, if you are missing out, and that's the link to Fearless TV. If you're missing out on live streams because I keep getting kicked off YouTube, pretty much you're just going to have to join us at infiniteplanesociety.com and get on that newsletter. And then that also gets you into Discord, which, as you can see here, is where we do our cutting edge research 24/7. And this is how I'm able to stay up to date on a lot of things. I wasn't going to talk much about the banana stuck to the wall. Might get into it in a minute here. But let's get back on topic. Oh, little side note. No, won't even go there yet. This is Fearless TV's channel. I just put a link. This is not who they claim to be. And this is, again, showing you these two faces side by side. And you know how subtle the differences are, but you wouldn't notice it. You wouldn't put the two together because they change them enough. And of course, you see the usual stuff, the one eye symbolism, even the rose. That has a great deal of symbolism within the secret societies, the rose cross. Again, what he posted on Twitter. My goal is to get overly famous, shine for a couple years, and then fake my death. 3:44 a.m., 4/25/17. And then, of course, his lyrics. And this is from Pop Culture. Juice World seemingly predicted his death in the song lyrics, "We ain't making it past 21." So he predicts it in Twitter, or rather, he foreshadows it by saying he's going to do it. He told you, I'm going to fake my death in a couple years. It's been a couple years. He has a song, not making it past 21. And I read through some of his lyrics, and I did find what I believe to be suggestions here of him alluding to it in other ways too. They say he suffered an emergency, a medical emergency at Midway Airport. So we don't know yet. I mean, I'm suspecting it's drugs. They're gonna say it was some kind of drugs. We'll see. I'm going through some comments. Some of these are great. Katy Perry is Hillary Clinton. Great. Yeah, some of these people are really off base, but they're... Yeah, I mean, conceivably, you have to realize that if they wanted to, if Katy Perry wanted to put on a fat suit and age herself 40 years and pass herself off as Hillary, she could do it. If the technology's that good. It really is. Okay, so Teeny African says in 2021, maybe Lil Uzi Vert will join the 27 Club. Wade Wilson says multiple role actors doing what they're told, paid a salary, living in rented mansions, driving leased cars in someone else's name. Remember a few years back when some rapper kid wanted to take out $200,000 of his own money? He ended up cuffed and arrested, and most of the cash was taken as evidence. They have a black card and show off prop cash, nothing more than small-time employees of the ruling system. Do not envy these people. Peace. That's by Wade Wilson. See, that's what they are. It's not MK Ultra. You know, it's really not. It's not clones. It's not reptilians. It's employees. It's employees. I see Cam B in the chat. He says, I think Black Youngster is Jacques. Hey, these are all worth looking into, and if you find them, send me tips. InfinitePlaneSociety at gmail.com, or contact me through my site or through Discord or whatever. We're going through all of it. Yeah, John Benet Ramsey is Kate Perry. Duh. That one's old, but it's actually relevant. And the conspiracy theory there is, oh, her parents sold her to the Illuminati. No, the whole family. I mean, if you look at Kate Perry's parents and compare them to the parents of John Benet Ramsey, same bitches. Her dad didn't change anything. He just got his ear pierced so he could be hip or whatever. He's like a 70-year-old with an ear piercing. Mom didn't even change her hair. Okay, so let's move on to some. Let me check your comments, see if I've missed anything. Any new terrorists? Yeah, we've got 80 people in here. Leroy says they might stage something for Jurassic 5. Yeah, that'd be horrible. Because of Cam B. Cam B says, if we can get the word out on Akil, I think they might off his character as well as the weekend. Well, I don't know. I mean, you'll never get an admission. That's the thing. Jerry says the A in DEA stands for administration, not agency. I stand corrected. An agency or an administration that really shouldn't exist. Absolutely tyrannical. All right, let's move on. Man, old propaganda. You ever watch Reefer Madness? Old propaganda is a trip. I have some examples of some old propaganda. I think 2 days ago we were looking at this thing where 65 years ago some lady was hit by a meteor. It went through her roof and she had a bruise on her hip. Fakest story you could possibly imagine. But back then it probably looked real. Today it wouldn't even make Weekly World News. But the funny thing about it, and let me bring it up, 65 years ago, a meteor lands on a woman's house. She's in Alabama. How a meteorite ruined an Alabama woman's afternoon 65 years ago. Okay, so we all know, because this is the only meteor victim in history, we all know this is bullshit. Like those of us who are listening right now, all 80 of you know this is BS. And if you look at the story even closer, it gets just cornier and cornier. Here she is holding the meteor that landed on her. Fell through this hole. She's got a picture of an astronaut right here. Here's the mayor, chief of police. Anyway, those of you who believe we're on a spinning ball, you got to believe this is true. You got to own this. Like this ridiculous tabloid Weekly World News, what do you call it? Just confabulation? Mockery? Like you got to accept this as faith. So if someone says, hey, Globecuck, has a meteor, a space rock, ever actually landed on somebody? Your answer is yes. 65 years ago, it landed in some lady's living room, bounced off the radio, and it left a welt on her hip. I believe it. You have to. It's part of your faith. It's part of your dogma. It's part of your uneditable historical record. Jennifer Lee says, remember the headline and photo of the woman who fell perfectly from a skyscraper into a car? Wasn't that one fake? I gotta look into it. Noobzy Production says, oh my god, Juice is alive. Oh yeah, he is. Nothing to see here. This is a standard operating procedure. It's not like, oh, this is one clever guy who figured out the system. Nope. The system that uses people like this, or puts them in these roles, finds it convenient to make them more valuable by making them more scarce, aka killing them off. I'm starting to question how many of these teenage heartthrob singers in the 60s, these Buddy Holly types, like how many of these other deaths were faked? Richie Valens, Buddy Holly. Imagine if these guys weren't actually killed in accidents. But if they realize we can make more money if we just change the character, switch it up a bit. Milk it, turn yourself into an icon. Your fans will never see you age. You never saw Jim Morrison turn into a corpulent Rush Limbaugh. But that's what happened if you actually follow the trajectory of that particular death faker, government shill, agent, etc. The pal says numbers and symbols, etc. Yeah, I stay away from the numbers and symbols, to be honest. I don't think there's anything to be gained. We're just looking at the facts as they're reported, the so-called facts, and we're analyzing those. Check this out. Real or fake? I'm not going to tell you. Put a 1 in the chat if you think this is real. Put a 2 if you think it's fake. And we see here are a couple of caribou butting heads in this guy's driveway.
Holy fucking shit!
Sorry, let me go ahead and warn you. Language. In fact, let me turn the volume down just a little bit. Okay, if you think this is real, put a 1 in the chat.
Ma! Ma, come outside! There's a fucking moose! Or a buffalo or some shit they're fighting! Where the fuck are you going? Ma! Holy shit! This is some fucking National Geographic shit! Ma, call the fucking cops or the ASPCA! There's animals fighting in the front lawns! Oh shit!
Okay, real or fake? This is just a test. Put a 1 if you think it's real, put a 2 if you think it's fake. Again, chalk body outline says real, but voiced over by Michael Rappaport. Interesting. Beetle Freak says, I bet it's fake. I am a big fan of cats, puts a 1. 1 is a maybe, you don't know. I don't know. That's my point. I don't know. I don't know if that's real or not. Portal Complex says the accent doesn't make sense. Jerry Gergic says, is that Staisley? Could be Ryan. But here's the thing. I watched it several times, right? And until like 10 minutes ago, I was convinced that this was real. And I'm going to give you a link to the post in chat. And if you followed me on Float, you would already have seen this. Pippi says 1. Salty says 33. There's a link if you want to watch it for yourself. Portal Complex says that would have to be Canada. I don't know if it's real or fake. That's my point. I don't know. It looks real, but that doesn't mean it's real. This is no longer evidence because there are apps that you can get that will take something from National Geographic and project it over your front lawn with sound effects, even moving the only thing that gets me is there's a piece of gravel that moves right here. The car drives off, but when I pause it, there's just something flat and there's too much of a gradient in the antler. I do see shadows. I don't know if they're consistent with the other lights. It sounds real. But again, I think it's fake. I'm waiting for someone to let me know. Eel03 says fake. Look, I thought it was real for about 12 hours, and that's my point. Like the people who thought Jussie Smollett was lynched for 24 hours. How triggered were they? They were like, whoa, we got a problem here. The MAGA hats are ramping it up a bit. You gotta take note. You know, the white racists are out there lynching gay black actors in broad daylight. Then it turns out it's a hoax. So it's important not to let media, or rather blind faith belief, auto acceptance, auto belief in media, make you triggerable. And this is just another realm where we've been kind of collectively mandoozled because we don't know what kind of edge they have on us. But I think this is fake. I'm waiting for more evidence. And if it is a fake, you know, the guy did a really good job. Okay, let's get back on topic. We're talking about Juice Wrld, who's supposed to perform at Rolling Loud Los Angeles, then he fakes his death, but he's also, so this is the big breaking news here. And I do want to point out, we called out, it came out of the Infinite Plane Society think tank, before TMZ called it out that it was prefaced in his lyrics and in his tweets. I think we beat them to the punch by a number of hours. Another reason to go to autohoax.com and stay subscribed. We're publishing material as we get it on these things. So, in addition to being a death faker, there are indications that he's also someone who's a deep faker. And the two tend to go hand in hand. So this particular deep faker is still going to be at Rolling Loud, just not as Juice Wrld. You can still catch him as Lil Uzi Vert. Again, the Juice World fans faked seizures to lucid dreams on TikTok before he died of a seizure. And of course, 2 years after his own prediction that he would be faking his death. He didn't say, I predict I'm going to die. He said, I predict I'm going to fake my death. Important distinction there. Linda says, the scene may be fake. Eel says the way that car drove away is weird. The woman at the zoo with the bear fakery. Oh, that's one. So, no, that's the lion. There was a woman who goes to this Bronx Zoo and she's seen as hanging out with a lion. And it goes viral and it turns out it was trick photography. Commenter says, I think this deepfake phenomenon has arisen artificially as a way for mainstreamers to think the ISS inconsistencies are the fakes. Yeah, that's part of it. That could be a way to kind of muddy the waters. In fact, looking at the ISS footage now, many of the obvious green screen glitches that you think they would have edited out, because think about it, these things are not live. These things are not live. The ISS footage that you think is live is not live. Or if it's live, it's not from space, in other words. But there's definitely no reason to have some of the glitches that we've seen. So I believe that some of these glitches they give us, like where they disappear into the green screen or they kind of morph, that's to make it look like interference. The signal got screwed up. As in, oh, they're moving 17,000 miles per hour and they just went around the curve of the earth, so you lost the signal. That's what they want you to think. It's just theater. So not all the green screen glitches are the same, and those ones, well, they don't prove a green screen glitch in the way that we usually, like accidentally. It proves that these things are produced in a studio. Now that lion lady story is something else. I might go back into that. It just shows you how the media doesn't even question its sources and it repeats stuff. So the guy's about to release an album. That's another hint. Plenty of articles on the topic. Let me show you this one. I didn't actually go through the videos of the stage death itself. You can find those, but there's a picture here that I want to show you. This is on the top right. You have Nipsey Hussle on a gurney, or the dummy that they're giving one-handed moving chest compressions to. Totally fake. One sock on, one off. Also note how stiff the legs are. There's indications that this is the same dummy or similar one, because over here, when you see Juice World, you can actually see him with red shorts, just like Nipsey, red shorts, and he's got one sock on, the other sock is off. So there may be something ritualistic to the way that they carted him out that's worth looking into. Stranger Day says, now I am questioning the Elephant Man. All right, I'll be right back. I want to go ahead and take a short break. This is Mandoozled by Thinking Heart. Oh, by the way, speaking of Mandoozled, John LeBon. If you don't know who John LeBon is, I think he's a recovered flat earther. Anyway, he's doing an entire month on the topic of the Mandela effect. He's a skeptic, a media skeptic, media analyst. He auto hoaxes like we do, I suppose. I haven't looked all that deeply into his channel, but it sounds like he's a dyed-in-the-wool auto hoaxer. And he was surprised that there's a channel out there, us, deliberately and repeatedly calling out the Mandela effect as a psyop. And so at the John LeBon channel, they're dedicating an entire month this December to the topic. So you're going to hear more about it. Anyway, I'll be right back. I'm going to turn on my phones in case anybody wants to chime in on this Juice World. The Mandela effect is in crisis. What's happening with the Mandela effect is basically it has collapsed, like a couple of universes collapsing into one. It's the black hole, right? What's happening with the Mandela effect is basically it's all just a title. You're never gonna know who the black hole is.
You don't understand science. How's that? You don't fucking understand science. Man, you believe that.
Well, we might be wrong, but at least it led us to God.
Welcome to reality. This is a topic that, I'm very, very passionate about. It's rules of reality are fucking completely gone out the window, right? You will avoid crime. It's pretty much,
Okay.
The image is being lifted up over the
Phones are officially open. 505-510-4226. I had someone calling in only on the topic of Juice World. Thirst for Truth says, can't show the video because the Mandoozled are ultra sensitive to IPS memes. Oh yeah, no doubt. Look, my analysis of the Mandela effect is pretty much over. I analyzed it. I watched the movie. My findings are, if you're going to allow for it, you're positing the existence of a magical universe, one which is co-created by the perceivers. You could call it simulation. You could call it a video game. But basically, that's the simulation theory that you're positing. You can't really escape that. So that's fine. But do I consider the Mandela effects themselves to be evidence of a magical, or rather a simulated biocentric existence where we're co-creators? No. I think what's more likely to prove that theory would be synchronicities. Mandela effects are not synchronicities. Mandela effects are misremembrances that are mystified in a very systematic way, which is easily understandable by people who look into the misinformation effect. Misinformation effect is real. In fact, I have some other videos on this topic. One, now they have done studies where they've had people real time contend that they met Bugs Bunny at Disneyland, which is an impossibility. Bugs Bunny at Disneyland? No. But if people are shown an advertisement for Bugs Bunny in Disneyland before they're asked about it, they might actually remember Bugs Bunny being at Disneyland. Okay, got a few things here I want to show you having to do with the Mandela effect. And then phones are open, by the way. Also, there's another huge UFO sighting over Los Angeles. Something else having to do with the Terminator using the bowl cut. Some Terminator character looking very much like the same archetype that they've been planting into your consciousness. And look, when you're watching the movies, when you're watching the mainstream media, you're watching meta scripting. So much of what you see may have relevance and context in the future. Actually, it's guaranteed to. All programming is predictive programming. People say, oh, well, you see little hints in the movies. It's predictive programming. No, all programming is predictive programming. You're in the program if you're imbibing it. If you're taking in the programming, you're on that program. You're in their script. So, yeah, definitely here, there's a correlation to be made. And it's not a coincidence that the ADL comes out labeling the bowl cut as the official cut of the mass shooter or the hater and the hateful bigot, the Nazi. Also, look behind him. Before they took Dylan Roof, if you didn't recognize him, this is Dylan Roof from the Charleston shooting hoax. The first one that got me to start really analyzing the shooters themselves as composite characters, as complete fabrications. So I'm looking into this character, and after the shooting, they take him to Burger King for a Whopper. And of course, you know the word Whopper is just another way of saying lie. So he's taken to Burger King, and when they take him to Burger King, he's taken out of the cop car, and you see he has one pant leg rolled up, which is a Masonic symbol, a Masonic sign. And here he is in front of bricks. Very Masony, to say in the least. And in this context, I would say, yeah, this is them showing you an initiate going through his initiation, or there are some symbolic references here that, yeah, this is all just staged. It's a psychological operation, and you know who's carrying these things off. They're all being carried out by the intelligence agencies, who actually control the media or influence it, pretty much control it. There's no reason to make a distinction. Is there a meaningful distinction to be made between mainstream media and Hollywood? I don't think so. Okay, check this out. For those of you who are Mandela affected about the JFK car and how many people were in it, I want to get into that. But let me answer one question. Noobsy says, I understand. Oh, this is great. I love this. He says, I understand the Mandela effect, but I don't understand how you think Juice is alive. You see, the mainstream conspiracy theories are always based on something other than reason and logic because you can't prove it, you can't falsify it. And all of them have one purpose to keep you from seeing the deep fakes. So the people who find the Mandela effect believable don't understand about deep fakes. And that's not your fault. It's been kept out of your view on purpose. So I'm going to go ahead, just for the benefit of this caller who doesn't understand how I would make the claim that this guy's alive, I want to show you this really quick here. This is Jonah Mendez, retired CIA operative.
In order to celebrate.
And what she was known for is, introducing the use of these disguises and implementing them. And she introduced it to George W. Bush, walked into the room and took off a mask, and he had no idea she was wearing a mask. She makes the point that you could be in a room with 6 Saddam Husseins and you wouldn't know which was which. So this is the point. This whole deception, the deepfake thing, is standard operating procedure. But these masks and how sophisticated they are have been classified. It's been a classified national security secret until a couple years ago. Actually, until just a year ago, when they started talking about deep fakes with, digital deep fakery going viral. So here she is wearing a mask and she's about to take it off.
Of when I met George H.W. Bush in the Oval Office and revealed to him that I was briefing him wearing a mask. When you go to disguise a person, the general idea is that you're going to meet with someone in this disguise and they're going to write a memo of the person that they just met with.
So she goes into the methodology behind it and the rationale. But see, one thing to consider, you wouldn't know if this wasn't a mask. That's how good it is. You can't say with certainty. Just like you really can't. You can't say, oh, I know that's real. No, you really don't. And the more we look into these hyper-real masks and how long they've been using them, the more it makes sense that we've already been deepfaked. We've been born in a deepfaked reality. Every crisis actor is a deepfaker. And the death faking isn't just with these musicians like the 27 Club or the Die Young Club, but no, it's throughout. There's political martyrs who fake die, like Seth Rich, Isaac Cappy, Andrew Breitbart, on down the line. Performers, comedians, Bill Hicks, Jim Belushi, Chris Farley. Many of them resurface as politicians. And there are politician death fakers. JFK didn't die. How do you like that? And that might actually make some people mad. Like, how dare you say that? Well, it's obvious if you know what you're looking at. And JFK, his death wasn't even viewed live by many people who claim to remember it. So there are people who say, I remember JFK's car had 4 seats, but now it has 6. And this is a Mandela effect. So I want to show you here, for those of you who are Mandela affected, what happened to JFK's presidential limo.
To see it now is still jolting. All polished and presentable without a hint of what happened 50 Novembers ago. Belatedly armored and topped and bulletproofed. The tragic Lincoln limousine at the end of the road in the Henry Ford Museum here in Dearborn, Michigan. Matt Anderson is the curator.
The 50th anniversary of the assassination has really drawn people.
So here you have the JFK limo. And so the people who are Mandela affected are saying that during the shooting, it had 4 seats. And now it has 6. And this is one of their evidences of a glitch in reality. And here you can see 3 seats. And the reason for this discrepancy is that one of those that's displayed, there's a replica, but there's one that was displayed and the middle seats were folded down. It's that simple. These very simple misconceptions have caused some people to think that they've jumped into a totally different reality. It says, although other parade cars were built in 68 and 72, this one, the JFK one, was officially or occasionally used by Nixon, Ford, and Carter. It remained in service until 1977, and now it's exhibited to the public at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. So you can go see it for yourself. Something else I wanted to bring up because we are really working hard to get away from guard railing conspiracy theories that hide the fakery. Here's an example of guard railing, okay? This is Richie from Boston, and listen to him elaborate on what he thinks happened on 9/11. And I'll explain to you what's wrong with it, and there is something wrong with it. There is something deeply wrong with his assessment.
Plunge to go to war forever against terrorists. It was the greatest gold heist in human history. Yes, look that up. Dump trucks full of gold were caught fleeing under the towers as they started collapsing. The greatest insurance job, and it was an enormous satanic ritual that everybody participated in because everybody saw it.
So everybody saw it. So it's an enormous satanic ritual and the gold's being stolen. Now, my point is this. Nobody died, bottom line. Understanding this particular fact is essential. This is important. It really is. You know, people say, oh, I can say all day that nobody died in the Holocaust or nobody died at Sandy Hook. They can say that all day. But talk about 9/11, nope, because they don't want to admit that they've been fooled. And here's the point. Anyone pushing real deaths, no matter who they blame it on, is pushing a, quote, real attack. And as long as you treat the attack as real, and you believe it to be real, then you're giving the government-controlled media camouflage, where it can pretend to be reporting. They can pretend to be journalists, instead of being revealed for what they are. And this is why it's important. The media isn't consisting of reporters. It's a few. They sometimes do journalism accidentally. Shout out to NPR, who accidentally discovered that 230 reported shootings were faked. They hide themselves. But in reality, your mass media is the institution that creates the terror propaganda that they use to subjugate you and your children. The hyper-mediated masses. Pretty much everybody but the IPS, for the most part, who've gone this far, to recognize how fake it all is. So when Richie's telling this cool story about gold and Satan and satanic rituals and all that in his Jeep with a green screen behind him, pretending he's driving somewhere, when he's doing this, he's protecting the mainstream media. Does Richie from Boston like telling dramatic stories? Is that why he's doing it? Because all he's doing is he's creating MSM fan fiction, and he's burying the psyop, the reality of how fake it is. But that's why autohoax.com is here. Let me go through your comments, see if I've missed anything else. I'm going to be back later on to be taking calls. If anybody has anything, you can chime in now. Big wake-up call, giant UFO, seen by 100 witnesses. And of course, the more people witness it, the more real it is. And this one looks to me...
Fuck that, dude. Those are aliens.
Okay, this looks to me like... Look, it's UFOs and alien Santana. 100 witnesses saw this craft. It looks like a whole bunch of drones in one spot, but we'll see.
What in the fucking goddamn...
They're saying 100 witnesses.
What is that, bro?
And I'll give you a link.
What's that thing in the middle then? They're too high to be drones.
He says they're too high to be drones, but of course this is the guy filming it, so...
Bro, I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to get in my truck and start driving.
That's weird, buddy. Hold on a second. I can't tell if it's drones or what.
They're not parachuters because...
They look big.
Yeah, and dude, they're so high in the sky. You can't, those drones are tiny. That's... Dude, we're all going to die. Look at some of them are disappearing.
I'm suspecting a drone swarm, so we get no answer here. But I have seen these drone swarm displays in China, where, like, there was one where it looked like a 300-foot tall person, in the night sky walking. like fireworks, basically. Here are some examples. So, just to give you a heads up, in case they try any of this with their staged alien invasion, you could use a drone swarm and create the illusion of a 3D object. And there's really no limit to it, and it's just as good as computer animation, 3D animation on the ground, but it's performed up in the sky, each drone being like another, pixel. So there you go. That could be used to simulate. Anyway, I'm going to be back later this evening to take calls. I have some follow-up research to do into this Juice World death fakery. If you don't want to miss the next live stream, join me at DLive or Twitch, or just go to the Patreon where you get the direct email notification. Also go to infiniteplainradio.live if you want to follow my feed over there at Float. And so Float is basically my replacement for Twitter. There may be a few things in there I should go through really quick here before we go. See if I've missed anything. All right. I'll cover it tonight if I've missed anything, but I think we found as much as we could at the moment up on the Juice World Death Fakery. What's the 27 Club? We ain't making it past 21. It's a fair question. Is he faking his death? And I'll be updating everything at autohoax.com on that case as we go through it. Also, I want to point out here, I don't believe that the shooting at the UPS truck was real. And if it was real, it's extremely reckless. But I'm still of the notion that the whole thing was staged using spark paintballs. Anyway, this is One-Eyed Jack and the Shells, just a bowl cutaway.
Another angry white kid just about got away. Greta's going to be pissed. Greta's going to be pissed. Just a bucket away. Another angry white kid. Just a bucket away. The crisis actors are here.